I think his current record is 65 in front of Tippy's.
Wow. You just got somebody doing 65 in front of you?
Last week,
Last week.
yeah, we had 2 excessives. No, forgive me, 75 in front of Tippy's because it was 45 over the speed limit.
That's pretty. Are they running for the ferry?
Yes.
Yeah.
And did you hold them for a couple ferries?
Their vehicle is no longer with them.
So
They were
walk
able to get there.
Okay, what time now?
I was telling people that haven't been here that long because with the new ferry shuttle, there's often that huge long gap before they actually leave. They've loaded it and then they sit there for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And you see that the people that, clear the intersection, see the green light and no cars and freak out. Where, instead of trusting their watch or just moseying down there because they know they've got lots of time. Yeah,
I just thought we need to go past me on the right.
yeah. Oh, I had a car, I was coming in the ambulance back across the island and passed. Yeah, seriously, I'm looking at my watch, I'm going, lots of time and that, but nope.
The new ferry cam is fantastic.
Steve, I haven't talked to Steve. I don't know if he's. I have to tell you, I think that was on the agenda.
Okay. Shall we start it?
Let's start right away.
Yeah, great. Well, welcome everybody to this meeting of the Emergency Program Executive Committee. And I'm sitting in as vice chair because Jen, our chair, is somewhere else and joining us on the Zoom machine right there. Yeah, great. Oh yeah, great. And then I haven't sat in this chair using this setup before, so excuse me. And then we've also got Clive Lunn joining us on Zoom. He'll be coming in for one of the items about the delegation, 4.1. And then I won't bother introducing us all in the room. Corporal Savage is a guest. Thank you. I was wondering. This is wonderful. Welcome to Bowen and to this committee.
Thanks for
We
having
just meet 2 or 3 times a year, so it's not, it's great that you can be here and see how it all works. And I think the rest of us know each other. Hello back there. And we're going to start off just acknowledging that we're meeting on the territory of Squamish Nation, beautiful Kitsamha Sound. And others are joining us from various parts of the world. Also where Indigenous people live and just with respect. Okay, we're looking at item number 1 on the agenda. Any late items?
Nothing from me.
No. Anybody got anything to add to the agenda? Nope, okay. So by consent, I'm putting a check mark beside number 1. We're moving on to adoption of the minutes. These are from December the 10th. Is that right? Goodness, 2025 looks funny now. Okay, I wasn't at this, I don't think I was at this meeting. There you were. So can I have a motion to approve the minutes? Thank you, Aaron. Seconder. Thank you, Councilor Morse. Seeing no other changes, no discussion. All those in favor? Thank you. The minutes are adopted. And now we're on to public comments. Anybody public I can see?
No.
Anybody on here? Who is Sidber? Steve. Hi, Steve. Sorry.
Oh,
Steve is joining us on Zoom. And which is great. And then we're going on to 4.1 is our delegation. So this is business continuity planning. And I believe CAO has invited Clive Lunn to give us a presentation. And so Clive, if you would like to take it away.
Oh, hi. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for inviting me to give this presentation. This is intended to be a 30,000-foot view of business continuity management. I'm going to focus on a couple of things. One is just the process. There is a way of doing this, and the involvement of people such as yourselves. So senior people, executives, and so on, and why that's important to the process. Are there any questions at this point, or shall I just get started?
Any questions for Clive? I think this is something that I know earlier CAOs and obviously this one are concerned about in terms of how the municipality and all of our different functions carry on after a big emergency. Did you have a question?
Well, it's not a question so much as as far as I understand the legislation, we have to have a business continuity plan.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
It isn't, it's in EDMA. It's not one of the ones that is regulated yet. So it's not required yet. So we're all in kind of preparation phase for when it is required.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions? I think we'll have more questions at the end. Please go ahead, Todd.
Okay, thanks very much. I am going to share my second screen. If I can do that, give me 1 second. And oops, tell me, I might have to share this differently. Give me 1 second here. Okay. Right. Tell me if you can see that screen. Oh, it looks like it is. I think I can see it in the background over there. Okay, excellent. Okay, so just very quickly, a little 2 seconds about me. So I'm a fellow of something called the Business Continuity Institute, which is an international organization that certifies business continuity practitioners. I'm also a certified Canadian risk manager. I started doing this as when it was still only IT disaster recovery, starting in about 1996. So I've been doing it for a while. And I've worked at some large organizations, including BC Hydro, where I managed the business continuity program, including in the run up to and after the Olympics. So I'm quite involved in that. What I want to do is just go through the process, and we can get to the end pretty quickly, hopefully. And then if you have any questions, we can address those questions. Just a quick statement on EDMA. As was correctly stated, you are now required to have something called a business continuity plan in the singular, which is kind of interesting because it's normally a hierarchy of plans. It just makes it easier to compile and to maintain and to test and all that sort of thing and exercise. But you've not been given any guidance. So one of the things that I did with the Municipal Insurance Association, I do work for them as a consultant, looking after their business continuity program, and they asked me to put together a toolkit to help local governments get started. So it's kind of the thin end of the wedge. I've done that. In fact, Kern was at one of my presentations, and you've actually got someone coming to my next one, which is on April the 7th from your local government. So hopefully that will all be helpful to them. But let's get on to the actual presentation. So we're just going to very quickly talk about, like, what is this thing? What is business continuity management? We'll try and discuss how it differs from emergency management. They're sort of like two sides of the same coin. I'll tell you where they kind of meet in the middle. Disruptive incidents, the difference between an emergency as we think of it in legislative terms, like when we declare a local state of emergency and that kind of thing, and what else you might want to think about as an emergency, even if you want to call it something different. We'll talk about the life cycle. So how do you actually do this and why following the process is important? I'm going to touch on governance and where you folks need to be involved. Obviously the benefits, and we'll do a bit of a summary, and then we'll get to Q&A as fast as we can. So I'm not going to read off the slides. You have them in front of you, but the big difference here conceptually between business continuity and emergency management is if we look at the BSEM's definition of emergency management, it talks about many things, but one of the things it talks about is protecting the health, safety, or welfare of a person, limiting damage to property, and so on. So the way I look at it, the way I describe it from a local government position is emergency management or emergency response is what you do to help the community when something's gone wrong in the community, right? Business continuity is what you do when you are unable to function as an organization because something has gone wrong. There is an overlap here. You could have an event which causes a problem in the community, which also affects your ability to function. If that happens, under some circumstances, it may even compromise your ability to mount an emergency response. And we can talk a bit about that later. But and I have some sort of examples about that. But essentially, from a local government perspective, and the way we used to describe it when I worked at Hydro was the emergency manager and myself are like standing back to back in the doorway of one of our buildings, and she was looking at what was happening outside the building, and I was looking at what was happening inside the building, right? So it's like two sides of the same coin. So let's talk about disruptive incidents. So this is where we sort of think about emergencies and crises and business interruptions and what have you. But there were two academics, Lobinger and Coombs, and they defined, I've summarized it here, 10 types of crisis. They just call them crises, right? And it ranges from natural disasters, man-made, technological, and a whole bunch of things that you've got in front of you. All of these things are disruptive events that cause you to need to drop everything and focus on this thing. That is what a crisis really is. It's you know, the common elements to a crisis is, you know, it's an event that negatively affects the organization or its stakeholders. It has the element of surprise, and you usually have a short decision time, and it sucks up a lot of resources to fix the thing. So whether you are talking about responding to a classic emergency, or whether you're talking about a business interruption, or whether you're talking about just a crisis, you know, someone senior goes to Vegas, it doesn't stay in Vegas, and, you know, when it comes back, we find that the person's accused of spending council funds on the thing that happened in Vegas. That's a crisis. And the funny part is, particularly in a small, compact organization, you're going to find that the people you need in the room to figure out what's going on, even what to say and what to do, usually it's the same short list of people, right? And we'll get on to why that's important in a couple of minutes. But don't just think about the need to mount a coordinated response out of some sort of, you know, a crisis management team in an emergency operations center type setting for more than just emergencies, right? It affects all these other things as well. So kind of why do we need it? Well, this is more applicable to the commercial sector, but just out of interest is that a quarter of businesses do not reopen following a major incident, right? So if you think about that, if you're unprepared, what does that mean for your community? If you're unprepared, something goes badly wrong, you cannot continue to deliver your services, right? What does that mean for the community? So it's really, really important. The other thing to think about, and we'll touch on this in a minute when we get to risk assessments and impact analyses and so on. The problem we have with business interruptions is two things. The first thing is they're low frequency, high impact events. That usually means there's no real history. You can't look at it and say, oh, it's a thing that happens very frequently and what have you, you know, therefore must be prepared for it. There is always the danger of it'll never happen to us because it hasn't happened yet. Neither of those things are true. And the other thing is that where there are business interruptions, unless they happen in the public realm, they tend to be kept quiet because organizations don't like to broadcast. It's very different from a classic emergency. You know, you see the plane crash on TV, right? There's an emergency and everyone gets to see it because it's usually public and large. But if you have a problem like a cyber breach on your systems or something like that, it's a business interruption, you hope no one's going to see that. There's going to be an invisible event that you can fix before it becomes noticed, right? So there's not a lot of history, there's not a lot of visibility. So sometimes it's tempting to say it's never going to happen to us. So a little thingy here on the relationship between crisis management, business interruptions, and emergencies. So an example here would be a wildfire. So a wildfire is in a community, or an interface fire is an emergency, right? You're going to evacuate people and you've got to fight the fire, and there's multiple authorities involved and so on. But that emergency can also cause a business interruption. If that wildfire also takes out your operations yard or your city hall or both, then you have a business interruption as well, right? But it can happen the other way around. You can actually have an event like if you have a SCADA system that controls things like drainage and sewage systems and what have you, and that fails, that would be a business interruption. The thing fails, the SCADA system fails, you lose control of it. That can cause flooding and all sorts of problems, which can then cause an emergency because you need to evacuate people and so on. All of these things can become crises if they're not managed well. They can become really real crises, right? But again, the people who need to manage the events are usually the same group of people. So let's just quickly take a look here at the life cycle. So there's a way of doing this. There's always, like most things, there is a good practice or leading practice, and this is it. And I would recommend that you go and take a look at that website, www.thebci.org. There's an enormous amount of information there which will help whoever is going to be running this, who needs to know about it. Lots of free white paper stuff you can download and so on. But normally the way we do this is we start off by setting up the policy and program management, which is the governance of the thing. And I'm going to talk in a bit more about this in a second. It's really, really, really important that the leadership of your organization are involved, not aware, not just directly involved in it. And I'll get to why in a second. So the process goes something like this. I'll just start at the top. You can start anywhere, but I'll start at the top. We do a thing called the business impact analysis. What is that? That's, it's really three questions. It's what do you do? What happens if you can't do it? And what do you need to do the job? That's really the key thing there. The importance of this is making sure you understand the difference. And let's say you, I mean, everybody in the organization, or at least all the decision makers, understand the difference between important and urgent and important, because that's what you're looking for. You're looking for urgent and important. One of the important things to getting this right is to have an agreed definition of what not so bad looks like and what really bad looks like and what OMG looks like, right? So when you go to speak to someone and you say, what do you do here? And they say, oh, I'm an internal audit. I always pick on internal audit, folks. I'm an internal audit. And if I can't do my job for 2 weeks, oh, that's catastrophic. And then you look at it and you say, well, is it really? Is it going to prevent the organization from delivering its services if internal audit can't function? It's important, but maybe not so much in terms of delivery. So you need definitions. And usually what this is, you need some sort of matrix, an impact matrix of sort, and that needs to align with a risk management program. If you've got a risk management program, these things need to line up, because this is like risk management, it's a form of risk management. You can do risk assessments as well. You can look and say, well, I do an important thing here. Let's just say it's like to do with public works and dispatching crews. Now, what do? I dispatch crews. What happens if you can't do that? Well, the crew doesn't go out. The burst water main just keeps on sending water into the sky for however long it takes before we get someone there. So that's a problem. And the problem accrues very, very quickly. It gets very bad very quickly if I can't dispatch a crew. What do you need to do? Well, I need the phone and I need a megaphone so I can yell out the window and get the people on the truck and get them out there, right? Now, you can then do a risk assessment on the phone, right? What could cause the phone system to fail, right? What are the single points of failure? How do you take the call? How many people involved in the chain? Where is the answer point? And so on. But you can't really look at the likelihood of failure, because we get back to that, the problem with information and low frequency, high impact events. The impact analysis will tell you how bad things get and how quickly it gets. It allows you to draw a distinction between, say, internal audit and the person who mans the desk that answers the phone, that dispatches the crew when a call comes in, right, to limit damage out in the community from flooding or whatever the case might be. And you can justify that by having a set of agreed criteria. But that agreed criteria needs to be approved. It needs to be approved by the leadership. Okay, they need to say, yes, this type of event is really, really important, and that one will really, really critical, and it's time sensitive, and that one is not. The other thing I would say is you've probably got something like this in the form of an HRVA. Every local government needs an HRVA, but the HRVA, not all of it will apply properly to business continuity management. I'll give you an example. I've seen HRVAs where it says things like, quite correctly, the likelihood of a structure fire in our community is high, but the consequences are low. Therefore, it's like a medium risk kind of thing. That's true, as long as the structure that catches fire is not City Hall or the Ops Yard, right? Or it's not your structure. Then, because the context of the HRVA is how big an impact is it on the community as a whole, whereas what you're looking for is how does it affect us as an organization and our ability to deliver service. right? So they're very different things. So you can't mix and match. You need to do your own risk assessments. You can be informed by things like, are we exposed to, a siege or a tsunami or a wildfire and so on. But the risk assessment context is different. The next thing you get to when you've done your analysis, you figured out like, what gets really bad really quickly and what do we need to do about it, is you then get into this design phase where you say, okay, what are we going to do about that? Okay. Risks. The important thing to remember here is that the risk assessment or the impact analysis does not tell you whether or not you've exceeded your risk tolerance thresholds, and I'll tell you why. Risks are only intolerable when you can afford to mitigate them, right? If you can not afford to mitigate them, they become quite tolerable quite quickly, right? I'll give you an example. For hydro, dams. Dam failure was always a risk. Microscopically low likelihood of a dam failure, but if a dam failed, it would be absolutely catastrophic. Therefore, it was high risk, even though the likelihood was low. But what are options? We have to have dams, we have to generate power. Otherwise, we're not in the power generation business. So we need power, we have to have dams, we accept the risk of a dam failure. Even though the likelihood is microscopically small, the consequence is high. You will be in a similar situation. You'll find some things that you think, if we could, we wouldn't do this thing because the risks are high, but we have to because that's why we're here. That's our business. That's why we exist. Okay. Once you've figured out what's important, what your priorities are, and what you're going to do about it. What do I mean by that? Well, you've got an IT system sitting on premise maybe, and if it goes down or the building burns down, you need to recover it somewhere else. That's an arrangement you have to put in place. Could be a system, could be a server, it could be a specialized piece of equipment that you have in operations. And without that equipment, could be spares, critical spares, capital spares, whatever. If they are lost, you have a major problem because they've got long lead times or whatever, or there's certain things you cannot do. I always make the joke of what I call the mighty big backhoe. If the mighty big backhoe breaks and you need it, you're hooped. And if you don't have it when you need it, then you're going to have a catastrophe. Okay. It's the same concept. You need an arrangement of some sort in place to replace the mighty big backhoe if you need it, right? Those are decisions. Once you made the decisions, you can now start to implement plans because the plans are really about how you use the arrangements that you've put in place to fix the problem. I'll give you another example, payroll. You can say, oh, well, if we can't access our payroll system, it could be a third-party system, it could be on your own premise. If we can't access it, I will just write checks. That works as long as your bank is not running check verification and they expect a list of check numbers with who they're made out to and the value, because if they do expect that, they're going to bounce the check. Okay, and you won't have paid anybody. Then you might have to find out a different way of doing it. Maybe you're going to actually pay people via your EFT system, for example, via your accounts payable system. To do that, you need some things in place. You need the person's legal name, you need their bank account details, and so on. Otherwise, you can't give them any money, even if it's just an allowance to tide them over. Those are arrangements. These are things you put in place ahead of time so that you can execute your plan. Okay. Then obviously we get into drills and exercises. You've got to exercise. If you don't exercise, people won't know there's a plan. They won't know how to do it. And this again is where the executive needs to be involved, right? If the executive are not involved and you have a problem, they are going to feel compelled to lead. And if they're not involved in defining the strategy and the plans, and they're not involved in the exercises, they may lead everybody to the left when the whole organization is expecting to be led to the right. And if that happens, you're going to have chaos, right? So your executive need to be involved. The other one is just awareness. Everyone needs to know about this stuff. It's just like drop cover and hold on, right? We live on the West Coast. We all know about earthquakes. This is the same sort of thing. People need to be aware of it. A good way of making people aware of it is the next time you have a fire drill and you're all standing out on the sidewalk, you say, what if we can't go back in the building? What now? Well, that's business continuity, folks. That's where it starts, right? We've had a problem. We've saved all the lives. We're all safe and happy. Now what? Now what is business continuity management? So let's just quickly move on to the program management part. So this is a program. It's not a project. None of this, of course, is indicated in the new EDMA, but you've got to continually keep things up to date. Sorry, is that a question? Nope.
No, carry on.
Okay, right. So the important thing here is that you keep things up to date. Okay, I'll give you an example. You may have someone who's very, very, very important in your organization. They play a critical role in something. Could be someone in public works. It could be someone in IT. Doesn't matter where. If they're really important because they have very special skills or abilities that you need to leverage when things go wrong, and then you fire them for some reason, they're dismissed with cause, and then something goes wrong, you pull out your plan and you say, I'm going to phone Clive because he's the guy who's going to fix it. And you phone Clive, and Clive was the guy you fired last week or last month, and all you hear down the phone is me laughing like a drain because you fired me and now you need me, right? So your plans have got to be up to date, right? Both in terms of the people involved, contact details, but also process. If process changes, if you're running your payroll, for example, on an internal system, and then you outsource it to, say, Payworks, right? Your plan around what you will do if you can't access your system may have to change. So you've got to keep these things up to date. We call them living documents. And again, just to touch on this very quickly, things like policy, framework, like how you do this, what your standards are, what a plan looks like, that's your executive need to be involved in that, right? And the reason you'd be involved is because they are accountable for the performance of the organization, right? And a business interruption is where the performance of the organization falls flat in its face if you cannot recover it in time. So they're involved, they're accountable for that, they need to be involved. They need to approve controls, they need to approve the arrangements because they're going to need to sign the check. If there's money involved, they're going to do it. If there's a mutual aid agreement involved, an MOU involved, they've got to be involved in those things because they're committing the organization. So it's a senior leadership thing. The exercising and tests, everybody's involved, as is executing the plans if something goes wrong and utilizing the arrangements. You may often hear, I'll just go on to the next slide here, you may often hear that that plans don't survive first contact with the enemy and all that kind of thing, and there's some truth to that, except for the following. And I'll just talk about it. I'm going to skip this slide over here. It's pretty obvious. So if we look at our basic plan contents over here, there's some things that are really important. Business continuity plans are all about how I do things when the way I normally do it can't be done. And that's usually caused by some sort of resource that you depend on not being available to you. So if it's payroll and the payroll system's down, your resource is missing, you can't do it normally, what is your alternate way of doing it, right? So you need the same thing with communications. If normally you work on Zoom or Teams, and that's how you communicate, say between City Hall and the Ops Center or something like that, and that's not available because it's down, what is the alternative, right? You need an alternative for everything that is important, right? That's a way to think about it. So that's like things like communications, IT, specialized equipment, and so on. The big things the plans need to address, there's about 6 big buckets here. It's what do I do if the place I work is inaccessible. It's burnt down, it's flooded, it's collapsed in an earthquake, there's a protest outside, but I've got an important job to do. What do I do about if I can't get in? That's facility. Critical skills, the last Red Seal tech that did something is, in hospital or on vacation. How do we do it now? The CAO has to make all decisions over a certain threshold financially, let's say hypothetically. If that person is missing, how do we, how can we handle emergency expenditures when there isn't a local declaration of emergency? It's just a business interruption. Like, what does that look like, right? Critical skills, key authorizations, and so on. Information loss, IT systems, specialized equipment, we spoke about that. Inventory, consumables, materials, spares, and third parties, right? If you're critically dependent on someone to do something for you, to deliver a service, and that third party fails, what are you going to do? If it's like, if normally you get all your stationery from Grandin Toy, well, it's fine. You can go down to Walmart and you can buy stuff there. It's not a problem. But if it's your IT outsourcer or your if your IT outsourcer and you phone them up and there's no one there because they've had a problem, now you've got a problem, All right, it's a bigger problem. So you got to look at all those things and decide what you're going to do about them. Benefits of business continuity management. Obviously, I like to talk about finding your risks before they find you. You can reduce the likelihood of a disruptive incident if you understand all the resources that are critical. You can put safeguards around them to try and limit the likelihood of a failure. It can reduce the financial and reputational impacts of a disruptive event. It improves your ability to manage major incidents and emergencies. So not just the legal definition of an emergency, but other crises as well. And it makes your organization more resilient. So just to wrap up, it is it's a program. It's not a project. It's ongoing. It needs constant care and feeding. And you need to keep these, you need to create plans, create arrangements, you need to practice them, you need to keep everything up to date. Questions?
Thank you. I have a question to start, Clive. I'm
Yep.
just, I hear you were talking about this EDMA plan being required now. Can you tell me about when it came in?
It was the last iteration of the EDMA. It must have been just over a year ago now, where it specified. I have the section here somewhere. Sorry, I can't get it for you right now. Where it actually, if you open up a copy of the new EDMA and you just search for continuity, you'll find it. It's like about 2 lines. You know, it says you will have a business continuity plan in the singular. That's all it says. It doesn't give you any guidance. It doesn't tell you what you have to do to be compliant with that particular requirement because there's no regulation around it yet. So there's no guidance, no regulation. The thing that I have done with the MIA is all based on leading practice. Okay, it is defensible. So I would recommend that you use the toolkit that that we've created as a starting point for that, because it will be a big help in getting you moving.
Perfect. Thank you very much. That's great. Then I can think we've got something else for a future agenda. More questions for our guest?
No, but I'm looking forward to meeting you live next month.
Oh, excellent. Yes, good.
Yeah.
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 We can
Yeah.
don't forget that there may actually be some stuff that Kern did in his the first workshop.
Yeah.
So if he did, bring it with, because nothing has changed and you can build on that.
Perfect. Very good. Great. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, we've got a question.
Well,
Yeah.
how long do you think for a small municipality it would take us to actually develop a plan?
I need to see an org chart for that. But you're going to need to run at least 2 series of workshops. There's some groundwork to do first, a lot of which can be done in the workshop, by the way. You're going to need to run a series of workshops to tease out. So basically, each department, let's call it, you'll need to go through each department and ask those questions. What do you do here? What happens if you can't do it? And what do you need to do it with? You did chase those things down. Some things will need more detailed approach than others, like anything to do with IT, tends to get a bit messy. You will then need to look at your dependencies. So there'll be a phase there. And then you'll need to go back once you've decided where you need plans and whether you're going to have one plan for a whole area, consolidate plans, or what have you. You'll need a series of workshops again to populate the plans. So if you're using the templates that are provided with the MIA toolkit, that can go pretty quickly. But you're probably looking, this is just a guess here, but you're probably looking at a few days of work for the person leading the program. So you're going to need someone who's going to have to hold the pen and do the work. You're probably looking at a few days of work to finish all the analysis per department, and you're going to need to do the same thing again for each plan that you're going to create. You need to add another few days to work with emergency management, because I suspect as big as you are, you're going to need one EOC. You're not going to have an EOC that just focuses on, police, fire, ESS type of stuff and public works. And then the other stuff is corporate. I think you're going to need one EOC for a smaller organization because of the decision makers that you need in the room. So that will need to be, you'll need to align the plan with the business continuity requirements. Quite easy to do. Again, we have templates and things that you can use on the workshop. Then you might want to do some risk assessments, and you might want to do some exercising. Yeah, I need to see an org chart to give you a more sensible sort of idea. You might also have to involve third parties, like if you've got IT outsourcers or other critical suppliers.
Thanks. Great, thank you very much.
Okay.
And thanks for joining us.
Pleasure. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to give me a shout.
Well, you've given
Christina,
us some...
I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay.
I was, excuse myself, I was here just to get the intro to Clive and update on the business continuity, so.
Very good.
Everybody.
Thank you. Bye, Christina. Okay, and must be savage back. Thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay. And now we're on to business arising. So we've got 5.1, and this is just looks like some links. Would you want to say anything about this test?
Yeah, I could say something really quickly. So, at our June meeting last year, we discussed what we wanted to see in the OCP. And unfortunately, the consultants didn't actually incorporate those. So I've been working with Daniel Martin, the manager of planning, and he's confident in 3 of the points. We made 4 points altogether. He's confident in 3 of the points. The one he is not confident in is ensuring that the OCP doesn't include, that encourages fire smart principles and doesn't say anything that is actually contrary to fire smart principles. But what we've realized is that the next steps really requires the experience of the training of the fire smart coordinator to go through that draft and see if that, because the planners can't really do it, the consultants can't really do that. So my conversation with Daniel, apparently the second draft should be coming out soon of the OCP. And so that would be the version that Steve could review.
Okay, good. So that's sort of an action item.
Yeah, I think that's an option. I have been raising after meetings the issue of we can't be doing things that are going to be contrary to fire certain issues.
Okay.
No, I couldn't hear what you just said.
Sorry, I'm just sitting on, I'm the council, the 2 council liaisons, the OCPJ committee, so fire smart principles and we have had some discussion about a fire smart development permit area, but I don't know whether it's going to go ahead or not.
This committee suggested it as something that is in the OCP so that it is easier to put it in the future.
And we have talked about it when we were talking about development permit areas.
So just kind of including wording in the OCP around having Bowen Island as a fire smart DPA.
And I think water catchment is covered.
Yeah, she said it was covered, and same with the road issues to encourage new developments to have more than one way in and out.
Not have,
Thank you. All right, so we've got an action item coming out of that then. Steve's on Zoom, and I'm sure he's delighted that he's got an action item with Steve. Okay, So, which you probably knew about, and anything about the minutes are there, for reference, I think, about what we said, right, about the OTP, but maybe that it wasn't three. Okay, 5.2, the Training Act. This was interesting to read. Do you want to?
I'm so glad you found it interesting. I really like them because I pull a lot of information to move the EOC forward. So I could do a quick rundown of some of the sections that Mike is our consultant, Mike Andrews.
Sure,
Yes.
and just to introduce it for the people and me, this was an exercise to do with earthquake preparedness.
It was an emergency operations center earthquake, the exercise where the scenario was an earthquake.
Okay, so this was everybody in the EOC pretending.
Yeah. Purple was
You were there.
invited to it, but he wasn't able to attend.
Yeah, just nobody can always attend. Thanks. I
Exactly.
just wanted a little bit of intro in case there's anybody watching as well.
Mhm. So I'm just going to go over some of the sections that Mike Andrews wrote about and just kind of quick little rundowns. So the training, under training considerations, the maintenance training that he recommended, that's something that I'm working on, is more orientations for our EOC staff. And that currently there are only 2 of our EOC staff members that do not have the basic JIBC EOC essentials training. Under exercise play and observation,
Can you, that's Justice Institute?
Justice
Sorry, I'm
Institute.
terrible with acronyms.
yeah, sorry, Justice Institute of British Columbia.
Okay,
The emergency program is filled with that program.
right, yeah, no.
Are you on the recommendations page?
No, I'm not on the recommendations page. I'm just kind of overview of the exercise report, the after exercise.
That's
The
the
one
staff
that's
report.
got the nice rattlesnake on it.
The nice rattlesnake on it. He always calls it the rattler when it's an earthquake, yes. So under exercise, play and observation, a high degree of professionalism and camaraderie among staff notice, and he has noted that before. He's always really impressed with how well we work together. Under EOC staffing, basically BIM has enough trained staff for a moderate event, but would need to call in reinforcements for the urgent events. Under facility, I kind of noticed some inconsistencies between the report and the actual facility. So for example, the report mentioned a lack of a map table, which we did have in the room. It may have just not looked like he was expecting it to look. So I think that's something. So a couple of those kind of things. The breakout rooms and plotters are available in the EOC. And but to kind of bridge that gap that some staff didn't know about it, it's going to be part of our onboarding when we bring new staff into the EOC. Report also indicated that a reliance on amateur radio as a contingency communication strategy is diminishing and making the radio room redundant. And I kind of disagree with relying on newer technologies alone myself. The ECT assists with all emergency communications for the EOC and ESS, and I would intend to continue to support them. And I'm actually currently working with them to bring them into more events with ESS and with NERCs and with the forums. So I'm actually working on more collaboration with them. Under technology and visual displays, we did experience quite a bit of difficulty with the EOC, primary EOC computer. It was unable to keep up with demand. It was a leftover computer that we just kind of put in there. It had been retired. So that is something that it will hopefully be addressed with the EOC grant. It's in the grant proposal to address a lot of the concerns for technology and visual displays. Under general observations, some of the work does need to be done in our crisis communications plan, which our administration team is actually working on right now. And we'll also obviously have to do some training once it's complete to get everything up to par, up to where it's good. And other considerations mentioned have been addressed in the section debriefs. And information officer training has been suggested for both the EOC director and deputy director so that they have that same information that the information officers are working on. Another comment there is due to Bowen's unique challenges, we would need to plan for reduced staffing, and they had some suggestions on that. And regional coordination with neighboring municipalities and local governments should be considered. And on that note, I do attend a monthly Sea to Sky regional emergency management meeting, which has been really useful for that networking piece. And from those meetings, actually Steve joined me in the EOC exercise up in Pemberton, and that was something that came up because they didn't have enough staff. And that was one of the things I discussed with their EPC, is that we could also call on one another when we need to do that. And I would also say that the paddle project has done a lot to strengthen both the regional networks and our collaboration with the Squamish Nation. It's been huge. So that's kind of a quick overview of that. Does anybody have any questions on that, or either on the exercise, after exercise report, or the recommendation spreadsheet?
I have one. I'm just on the networking. You mentioned that if Pemberton had an emergency and you could help, do we have some kind of joint support agreement with them?
We
already?
don't at this point, but that would be something that we could start looking at now that we both know that we're both agreeable. It's far enough away that it's not terribly likely that we might be involved in the same thing. So it'd be great to be able to, but still close enough to get to within a few hours kind of thing. So it's something that we should start looking.
Sure. Well, bring it on. I think the more mutual support kinds of things, the better.
I agree, for sure.
Councilor Morse.
Well, what about some sort of mutual support arrangements with the North Shore?
Definitely. If we certainly with, we need to work with Metro Vancouver on that because we are in their regional district, so they could also be supplying us with staff. So, but it's all conversations that have to really,
Well, there is a North Shore emergency management group.
yes.
So we're not coordinating or working with that.
We would, they would, I do work with them, and I, same with Squamish. I tend to work with Squamish and, that side more often than with North Shore. But, certainly,
Well, I guess I was just thinking if there was any sort of slide serious issues, it would be more difficult to get people if the sea sky was blocked. I certainly than getting from the North Shore, so it might be better to have.
yeah, I think all of them. Yes, better.
Kurt?
Yeah, I just want to point out that Bowen's party to the integrated partnership for regional emergency management in Metro Vancouver. So that's a mutual aid agreement, and we can through that network access additional resources from not only the North Shore, but also to all municipalities that are part of Metro Vancouver. And I am an alternate for the steering committee for that. I volunteered for that this last time, and we had an exercise at the last RAC committee advisory, that's regional administrator advisory committee to the Metro Vancouver board. So we do have that ability to call up additional resources, and the last time it was activated was during the landslide in Lions Bay.
Right. Thank you very much. I thought we had something. I wasn't sure if it was just for fire or for this kinds of things. So thank you very much. Great. And I enjoyed the report, by the way. This is page 20 to 54. And I see what you mean. He's kind of talking about it very holistically, brings out a few places, and obviously you're looking at it. That's great. Tess, I was going to ask about the networking pattern project. Yeah, that's right. Brings everybody together.
It's been the way the Squamish Nation set theirs up has been really great, because each time you go, there's different people in the room. And so, for example, the Sea to Sky regional meeting that I'm in, I got to meet the leader of that, the person that's put that together. So we've had some really good conversations. Also, Sunshine Coast, I've met them and same with Johnny. And so it's been a lot. And of course, the biggest thing that come out of that is, we actually have now, it's coming up in my other comments, but, we actually have a protocol for when they want us to call and what numbers they want, like they've come up with a new set of coming.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Good.
And in a couple of weeks, I also have another meeting with them to further work out communication strategies with the sponsorship.
Very good. And we've got a question from Jen McGowan. Go ahead, Jen.
Hi all, thank you. I'm just a little bit confused looking at the recommendation section, so apologies if this is me. But I'm wondering, when I look at page 25 of the report and I see those recommendations over 2 pages, are we actioning every single one of those? Is that captured somewhere? And I realize there's this detail sheet a few pages further, but they don't seem to align. So I'm curious as well what those
Okay, so sorry, which page?
pages.
She said 25 of the report, but I am, okay,
I'm not actually.
Steph's
Okay,
gonna
so-
share it.
Sorry,
Yeah, mine's- mine's
looking at the
showing blank.
agenda, page 44 of the agenda is where the recommendations begin. So curious, are we actioning every single one of those? And if we're not, which ones and why? But I also notice as I scroll down, and Tess, I don't expect you to answer this today verbally, but I would like to understand what the plan is for actioning these. And if you scroll down, Steph, like 3 more pages, essentially, there's a
Table thing.
Yeah, this
Keep
one,
going.
this
Are
one.
we back at
that's
5.2?
down the other way. Yeah.
That's the bottom.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's
So
the-
in the agenda, I'm looking
Oh,
at
yeah. Okay.
it's unrelated.
Together.
So
The
yeah,
agenda
It looks
recommendation
nice.
spreadsheet is next.
it would be great
Yeah.
to understand, are we actioning them all, yes or no, and which ones are no and why? I'm again not expecting that here in this meeting necessarily, but just
Yeah.
hoping. I see a lot of these reports and often many of these recommendations are discarded and they come up again at the next emergency. So just curious how we're tracking that.
Well, some of them, for example, the multi-year training plan that came up in 2023, and I've just never had an opportunity to actually develop one. So it's on this one as well. Pretty sure I'd put it on this one again because it did come up again. So there's things like that. But yeah, it's whether or not we intend to or not, some of that would just be finances, whether or not we have the budget and also whether or not we have the staff time, because those would be the 2 major
Yeah,
factors.
I understand the limitations for sure. But again, what are we not actioning? So we can
Okay.
say that it's because of finance or budget, absolutely. But I think we should document somewhere like why we're not going ahead with recommendations when they're made as a result of these exercises. Is that not common, not a current practice?
That would be an excellent thing for me to do next.
It looks like it's going on the action items. And then maybe it could come to another meeting. Maybe you just want to add another column. and say
Yeah, exactly.
With
That's all.
priorities on it would
Yeah.
be helpful. That was
Yeah.
something I was looking at too, was, I can see the colors. I'm going, okay, I think I know what these colors mean, but what does it mean in terms of priority?
Yeah, that one, yeah, that's
Okay,
One
think-
question,
go ahead.
it's very, very minute. The amateur radio issue,
Mhm.
why is that not considered relevant anymore or important?
Because there's new technologies primarily. And especially the amateur radio, you need to have a license, you need to have training, you need to have a license. So I think that's primarily why there are emergency programs that are getting rid of their radio teams. But ours is also working on things that are not just the amateur radio. So I don't see any reason for not continuing to support them, and if anything, increasing the support.
Yeah, it's great. They're sort of part of our local emergency response ecosystem here, but Jen's pointing out satellite internet. Starlink.
Exactly. But
Very good.
So just leaving that work. So with,
Councillor Morse, please go ahead.
so with the recommendations, are you gonna prioritize?
yeah, that's definitely, that's a excellent first next step.
I have add another column to the recommendation spreadsheet with priority rating and have a standing item on the agenda to reporting on progress kids.
Yeah. Some of them,
Annually rather than every meeting.
the ones that don't make it generally end up on the to-do list, the EPC to-do list, and they will just go further down on the list.
Sure, with that, I think that captures, Jen, correct me if I'm not, but what happens to these and the process, so that'll be perfect. Even if you put in 2 columns and say, why not? Or
Note.
any comment, you know, whatever works best for you. And help to sort of track the progress year to year kind of thing, for the rest of us especially. Thank you for sharing. Okay, Councillor Morse.
Well, I just noticed, scrolling down, because I'm on an iPad as you are, there's 2 more columns if you keep going, which
Yeah.
didn't end up on the same page.
Yeah.
Yeah, so started and complete. So
Started
there
and
are
complete.
some that are complete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially the onboarding was, as I mentioned at our last meeting, that was after the exercise, but before the after action report. I really, prioritized the need for, coming up with a new procedure for onboarding, because it was, a big miss, like it was a big gap. Right. So, and it was something that took time to do, not, did not have to find budget and stuff. It was, so I did meet that one right away, and some of the other ones were very small and, easy enough to start.
Thank you. So my point about extra columns, forget that. They were just lower down on here and I misunderstood.
No,
there's no
priorities. We'll to prioritize.
Okay, yeah.
One question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are we subscribers? Is the municipal?
Yeah, so for Starlink on the EOC, on the primary EOC, we have a Starlink system on the roof that is on an automatic switchover anytime there is a internet outage. We have a mobile system at Fire Hall 2, and ESS now has a system that is just waiting for timing to get together. Only the one that is on the Fire Hall, the primary Fire Hall, only that one is active. So we would be using that one to activate the other 2.
Great. Thank you. Okay, anything else about the EOC training exercise? 5.2. All right, thanks. Not seeing any more from people on Zoom, so I'm going to move on now to 6.1, Community Fire Smart. This is for Steve. I'm wondering if you've got anything to update us with about Community Fire Smart and Resiliency Collaborative update. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, this will be my third EPEC meeting with you folks. And thank you for including me. The first one, I think I provided a bit of a background on the FireSmart program and sort of the core, what makes it up and how we function. And then on our second meeting, I put together a bit of a update on where we were at so far and some of the activities and things that we were taking on. And now for the third one, with March 14th marking our end of our year 1 UBCM grant funding, I thought it would be an opportune time to look back over the year and see what we've accomplished, and maybe just take stock of that for a second, see what worked and see what needed to be tweaked. So yeah, we have along the way submitted a WS1, a document where we can amend our grant and move funds around. We are permitted to move funds around within our year 1 funding from one category to the other, kind of depending on community needs. So we did submit that document. And it allowed us to take some funds from one area, DPAs, development of our DPAs in particular was just sort of put on the back burner for now, and some funds were used from that for some other areas of the program there. Once we identified that there was more of a demand in that area and that we weren't going to be able to undertake the DPA work as quickly as we wanted to. So we are still going to come back and revisit that. It's just going to take some time to make that happen. So completion of 89 of our home ignition zone assessments here on the island. That's where we get out and shake hands and meet people on the island and actually do, I think, probably the most good, where we can talk to people and suggest and recommend. That's so there were 89 of those total completed that we were allowed funding for in year one. 6 of our critical infrastructure assessments and the associated mitigation work that went along with that. Those all came out of the recommendations from the CWRP that we were handed. 10 neighborhood wildfire hazard assessments were completed, and there's an associated neighborhood plan that goes along with those assessments. That's where we close the loop, and we create a document, and we work with a neighborhood committee that's formed, and we make recommendations and suggestions, and we can do things like host neighborhood cleanup days and things like that. So we've had 10 of those. 30 of our Fire Smart green waste bins have gone off island now, thanks to Mike Carachlo there and his help with the disposal of that. That's vegetation that people are dumping. That's where we give people the option. You know, we go to meet them at their home ignition zone assessments or at their neighborhood assessments, and we make all these grand recommendations, and we tell these people that they need to get rid of all of this hazardous vegetation. But in order to complete that circle, we need to give people options and a place to put that stuff. And so that's how the green waste bin idea was born. And now looking back on it, you know, a year later, I think we could say that it's working. Aaron was nice enough to let us have that bin out at the fire hall there at the Satellite Fire Hall on Adams Road. And the location seems to be working, and we haven't had any people, you know, abusing the program, which was one of our concerns going into it. Yeah, so that's been happening. Continuing to work in conjunction with some outside agencies, like Chevron Canada, allowing us to do a little bit of, they did some wildfire mitigation cleanup at their property, Cardina and Trunk Road there. Metro Parks has gone into the park and cleaned up some large piles of debris that were up near the ball field and stuff. I think in general, we're forming these relationships with some of these outside agencies, and they're appreciating the value of the Fire Smart program. So it's been terrific to see that. Yeah, ongoing work with the public library in Kelly Woods down there, incorporating the Fire Smart program for kids down there. There's some great literature that's gone into the library. And I've done a couple of Fire Smart talks for kids that are kind of geared towards kids. Something similar to that has been happening at our local schools too, where I go in and do presentations there. And just talk about what, you know, wildfire might look like in your community, and you know, things that you can take home and have a talk around the kitchen table with your family. Yeah, what else? Outside presentations through the Rotary Club, the library, the Garden Club, as well as a couple of events that we've hosted down at the fire hall that have been, they seem to be pretty well received. So we're just going to carry on this trajectory here and move into year 2 now of our grant. We'll be heading over to Victoria in the first week of April, the 8th of April, for conference there. 4 members will be heading over, 3 to 4 members will be heading over for a wildfire resiliency conference there that I think is going to be quite beneficial. So looking forward to that. And that's pretty much where we're at and what we've been up to.
Thank you very much. Steve, that's great. And I'm wondering, anybody got questions for Steve? About the fire? Well, carry on then. Like, looks like we've, that was a very complete report with the numbers and everything. That's wonderful. Thank you very much. One question. Apparently, Councillor Morse.
We've got good funding for the upcoming year.
We do have funding for, yeah, we're just moving into year 2. We are actually now in year 2.
And do we have the same amount of funding as we had for last year, or?
We do, yeah. We had a 2-year grant, as you know, and it totaled approximately $300,000 in total. So that was split roughly $149,000 in change per year. Pretty much an even split between year 1 and year 2.
Thanks.
Thank you. Over to you, Tess.
And was all the funds used in the first year? Was it, were you able to utilize all 149,000?
Yeah, we've again, we were moving funds around from one category to the other. We were finding that some areas just weren't seeing the activity that we thought they were. So we were able to kind of, through the permission of UBCM and the proper forms and paperwork that had to be filled out, we were able to relocate all the money, and we've done a great job of literally using like every last dime within the grant funding.
Very good. Thank you.
And we had
Councillor Morse.
we had to report to UBCM, I presume, and we've done that.
There's a deadline for that coming up, and that'll be submitted before the deadline. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. And we're going to continue on then. That's great. 6.2, over to you, Tess, emergency program projects and priorities.
Okay. So this is again the emergency program project status spreadsheet. That you know, we need to use it again with the column and the number on the side. Okay. And so just stop me if you have any questions about the section I'm reporting on, and then feel free to ask questions about any other sections.
This is starting on page 55, right?
I don't know what page of it that I've just got the spreadsheet separately, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is on page 55.
Perfect. So the Indigenous Engagement Grant, the Squamish Emergency Planning and Response paddle project that I participated in has benefited well beyond the incredible cultural networking opportunity. It did, as I mentioned, result in a clear protocol for how to contact the Squamish Nation in an emergency. EDMA includes regulations stating that we're required to consult and collaborate with Indigenous community bodies that started in 2023, but this is the actual first concrete protocol to do so. So I was really excited to get that. And I'm meeting with them again soon. And and the grant period has actually been extended for another year. So so there's still about $10,000 of funding that is available. And so we can apply for that extension so that those funds can be used. Carla Scoos, Environment and Parks Planning. She's going to install an enhancement sign for Smith Cove with a listening station where people can learn pronunciations and hear stories about Squamish place names. And the other project would be for another cultural sharing project for the ESS team. Smaller scale than the paddle project, but something similar with that hands-on and more cultural sharing. G17, the 2025 ESS grant activities have been completed, but the final report is still in process, and that will be end up being a total of $32,700 and some odd dollars. The 2025 EOC grant is complete and payment has been received for $39,595. G20, the 2026 ESS grant. So this grant application was not successful, which was quite devastating. UBCM had told us that the funding would be greatly reduced. I was kind of hoping that they would fund some of the items on the application, but I have spoken with other communities that have not received the grant, and Squamish, Whistler, Smithers, Mission,
We're
So
not
we're
alone.
not alone. We're not alone. It's province-wide. The ESSD and I are working on ways to accomplish some of the training and retention activities without this $30,000 budget. And I'm also, we'll work on perhaps what we can do in future years, because grant opportunities as they are right now will continue for 3 years, and then we don't know if they will continue after that. So the G21 is the 2026 EOC grant. $30,000 has been requested. This proposal includes a one-day consultant facilitated EOC process refresher and mini exercise, extra monitors, the primary EOC and other equipment identified. It also includes catering for all of the in-house orientations so that we can have overlap and discussion. And so the lack of success with the ESS grant does make me a little afraid for this one. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. A lot of the grant was actually came out of what we found through the debrief and the after action exercise. So a lot of things in there were very specific, as this is a gap and this is how we can fill it. So I can kind of hope a little bit for that, but R1 ESS. ESS has tallied their total hours for 2025 at a whopping 2,537 hours. While there are about 30 volunteers on the books, only 6 volunteers took on the bulk of those hours at 1,824, which was 71%. So 6 of those volunteers are really doing so much of the work. Right now, just recently, our ESSD is on leave for a few months. So we'll see.
What is it, D?
Yeah, director. She's our director. So she's the lead of the whole program. The ESS team has been experiencing a mass influx of volunteers, and the lead team has kept up with regular training opportunities. 2 of the original volunteers that have been facilitating the JRBC, Justice Institute of British Columbia, they're community-led. They started a community-led course program last year, so that rather than having to go to JIBC or go online, local groups can actually facilitate their own courses. They provide all of the information and all the resources. I've actually spoken to them. I've requested some trainer courses that would also be really helpful. But now they're branching out and training more of the volunteers to be able to do the courses. So without the grant funds, we'll be relying on this quite heavily. And of course, more in-house designed exercise trainings. With ESS, we've been doing a lot of IT work over the last couple of months to allow the ESS laptops to access the corporate Wi-Fi network. This was a big gap.
Let us know if some of these acronyms you're not getting either. Emergency support services.
So we've been doing a lot of work on the computers so that we could use that corporate access. And that included migrating the previous Google Drive into a SharePoint, which is much more secure, but of course then ends up having some added complexities that are not quite complete, but it's getting really close. I also was able to get 2 central phone lines for the emergency program. So that could be used either by the EOC or by ESS. And one of the great things about that is there's always, since COVID and the era, which is the online registration and referral for ESS, one of the problems with being able to help people virtually is that you almost always have to give an evacuee a phone number to call. And so people are reluctant to work remotely because then they don't have a phone number, right? So they wouldn't be giving out their personal phone numbers. So this gives us that opportunity to get the phone number that they can be called back on. So I think that will be really, will be able to help more areas in BC that are overwhelmed. need that virtual assistance. And R5, the emergency communications team, just working with them on an emergency program partners focused discussion on emergency communications. I'm just working on them for an agenda and ways we can pull that in. And they will be helping facilitate that event. And the team is also working on increasing the on-island communication networks as well as some protocols for regular monitoring of devices such as family band radios in an emergency. More radios, a different kind of radios.
Yeah.
Those are more like really good walkie-talkies.
Yes.
Yeah. So any questions on anything on that spreadsheet?
Anybody got any questions? Go ahead, Corporal.
You mentioned your ESS volunteers. Where do they fall under for categories when it comes to an emergency? Like if there's an evacuation,
So
are there levels to it?
yeah, so the emergency support services, that's their gig. That's their whole, that's the biggest part of what they do is they would set up a reception center to process evacuees and provide them with vouchers or what we call referrals for food, shelter and clothing. So that's, local governments are mandated to provide those services for anybody that's been displaced from their home. That could be a house fire or it could be a mass evacuation, either or. And so most areas in BC, many areas in BC have an ESS team that train and practice and everything for that purpose. That's their primary purpose.
Yeah, you just mentioned a mass increase of volunteers, which is amazing. I'm just wondering if there's a certain scale or as soon as they're an ESS volunteer, they qualify for all of it.
Would qualify for what?
In order to like be able to stay and help instead of say an evacuation thing that they're.
So if the whole island was evacuated, then they would be evacuated, of course, alongside. What they would be doing is if, let's say we had a fire out Unity Lane area, we could set up a reception center here and we could provide them with accommodations that are still on the side of the island that are safe. Or if there was no safe, then we would be evacuating and setting all of that up in North Shore. Like we would be relying heavily on our, we have MOUs with North Shore Emergency Management and Lions Bay for those kind of provisions.
Perfect, thank you.
More questions about Tessa's report? Okay, thank you very much. Tess, and we're on to 6.3 then. These are roundtable reports. Anybody, including Jen, is welcome to chime in here. I've got the fire department update up first. Is anything you want to let us know about relating to the emergency program?
No, really, it's just been business as usual in the fire department. Our call volume has been nearly identical to last year's at this time. But our main focus has been working on getting our new volunteers trained up. So
Right.
yeah, that's really the only update I have.
Very good. Glad to hear about new volunteers again. Very good. But go ahead, Councillor Morse.
Are we at full complement for volunteers or do you still need more?
We could probably use a few more. We're better than we've been for several years now. So yeah, we're getting very close to where we'd like to be.
Very
Yeah.
good. Okay, and how about the NERPs, Edward?
We're having an all NERP meeting on April the 18th. That will be held in the EOC room at the fire hall. It's going to be 3 hours. We invite all of our NERPs. We expect, if anything, in the past is a predictor, we expect about 50 to 60% of our NERPs. This is going to be different because in the last couple weeks, we're going to open it to the public because the theme is preparation for fire season. And basically there's two parts. There'll be a part of a panel discussion and Corporal Savage, Steve Hannon, Steve Edwards, and we'll be actually taking questions. So if you've got any concerns or questions, this is the time to bring it. And then we're going to have an hour tabletop exercise on a theoretical fire or hypothetical fire in a regional. And let's see. And we're redoing the kiosk posters. They're not uniform in what is posted, and we've known that for a long time, but now we're going to do uniform postings. And so,
Time for the update.
yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for Nick? Sorry. Yeah, Edward. Okay, ambulance scale, have you got anything you want to?
No, this is on the door free for full complement.
Right.
Yeah, training's going well.
Councillor Morris.
I'm not sure if this falls under 7.1. But the issue we had with the person who couldn't get ambulance, 7.1. Okay, thank you.
Okay. And then, anything else? Okay, we're gonna move on to 7.1. I think you've got some updates or stuff.
Just wanted to keep the committee updated on what the email that was received from a member of the public who had some challenges with dispatch. I got really excited about learning about dispatch in British Columbia. Apparently there are only 3 in the whole province, and then they say it was an ambulance, fire, or RCMP. And the writer had some there's an emotional piece, but there was also some very intelligent, I think, thoughtful reflections on the unique characteristics of small communities, of island communities, and some ideas around what we can all do to improve communication with each other. This committee is for big incidents. It's for interface fires and earthquakes. So it's not really the role of this group, but it has been suggested that it might be nice for this group to maybe offer some comfort or information or in some way show support for supporting communication on the island in emergency groups. So I'm keeping it that it's an open meeting, so I just wanted it to be like a very positive gesture for people or people who've heard about this who might feel a little panicked about dispatch. And if anybody here wants to talk about it, please do.
So I can touch a little bit on it, probably the best. I can speak really easy in hypotheticals. I can't speak to the gentleman that emailed because it's right on the edge of potential public complaints, both towards the RCMP and towards ambulance services. So I can't speak to that one specifically. I can say that there's public issues of when they call in to OCC, the
It's OCC.
something communication.
So is that 911?
Exactly. There are dispatch. So you call 911, it goes to OCC.
Okay.
OCC answers. There's multiple of them at their own desks all over across a big area. So generally speaking, there's call takers that their only job is to answer when it's 911. Then there's dispatchers. So when my radio goes off, that's a dispatcher that's assigned to Sea to Sky and potentially one other area. So they're not always on our channel all the time. We have to page them. So when you call 911 and say, I have a situation, they'll say, is it for police, fire, is it ambulance? What do you need? And then they send it out from there. Paramedics, dispatch is a different center. Fire is a different center. Police is a different center, but the main 911 operation center is one main hub. So if it goes to police, well, the one person is talking to you on the phone. Edward could be the other dispatcher and they're calling me on the radio. A lot of people have it that they want to hurry up and get off because they think there's one person on the phone needs to stop talking to them so that they can call us. And we're an information gathering network. We need to know who you are, what your address is, what the best number to reach you back at is so that if there's information missing, we can still collect it. The other main concern is public safety and either officer safety or fire and paramedic safety. And that touches in a hypothetical aspect of what this gentleman emailed about, that ambulance and fire will not attend anything that puts them or their lives in direct danger. That's why we go and they will what's called stage to a call when they go. So whether it's an animal, whether it's somebody that's aggressive, whether it's the potential for violence or weapons, they will stage and we have to go in first. In order for that to happen, it's that dispatch center is communicating with the other dispatch center saying, hey, we need you to do this. Those conversations take time. In terms of this email, it happened on a Sunday. Bone Island or CMP do not work on Sundays because generally speaking, do not work a regular shift on Sundays other than specialized events because it's statistically our slowest day and doesn't meet the priority to cover it off, but we're on call, which means we have anywhere from a 5 to 15-minute response time from the time of getting the call. So it comes down to that. Problem is an issue. Hypothetically and somewhat related to this email is if somebody calls 911 and reports I have this issue, it's been acknowledged, they're working on it, it's happening in the background. People that aren't aware of that think, well, they haven't answered me yet, it hasn't happened now, so I'm gonna call 911 again, or again, or again. And at that point, it becomes misuse of emergency services because then you're tying up an emergency 911 line each time. That if it's the same thing, that things haven't progressed worse or that there's not something new to add, then it's causing a lot of problems and misuse of our valuable and limited resources. Just like everyone else is generally short-staffed, our dispatchers are extremely short-staffed. So in part and hypothetically, when they call multiple times, it becomes an issue. And then that dispatcher can say, you know, you need to stop calling like this because we need this line available for emergencies. So in a roundabout way, that's about the best way that I can touch on that email is that sometimes it's that communication between they need medical services, but there's a danger that medical services can't get there and then they need us to attend. Then it's that's going to add time.
So we just,
Go ahead, please.
so yeah, just to just basically echo what Travis said. The EOCs are like, think of them as like 911 distribution centers. All the 911 calls go to those and then they direct them to the relevant service. So you do have this 2-layer system. And if we're on, they're on scene and they want to relay that they're all clear, then they contact their dispatcher, then they contact our dispatcher, then they contact us. So, and that's, I think this has been addressed, as my understanding through one of our managers is that there was felt to be I believe in our dispatch, and again, the training new people all the time because of such a high turnover rate. That there wasn't the communication there, there wasn't a gap somewhere. It was a gap. Yeah, and so that's why that was the delay. So it was just one of those, not exactly a perfect storm, but there were multiple issues with, you know, them being on call and that, but there really wasn't, other than just the follow-up to make sure that the junior dispatcher understood, you know, what their role was a bit better. That's
Great.
fortunate. So
Thank you. And I see our chair, Jen McGowan's got her hand up. Go ahead, Jen.
Thanks. I appreciate you both speaking to that, but yeah, recognize and agree that there might be challenges in terms of what we can talk about at this venue. One thing that the letter writer raised that I thought, you know, made a lot of sense was that when they spoke to the RCMP wasn't aware of the existence of this committee. To me, that was a gap. We used to have RCMP representation. So I'm just grateful to see you here today, Corporal, and hoping that moving forward, you will join this group or one of your representatives will on our, you know, we only meet 3 times a year. So hopefully not a massive time commitment, but also share that information back in all our cases with your organization so that, you know, other members are aware of the existence of this group and the work that it undertakes.
Absolutely, I would love to. Thank you.
Great. I hope that works out. And I think also just the gathering together of people, it's easier to network, right? And we know who we are when we bump into each other in the community.
I got one question about emergency response. Do people know where every house is, even if there's no street number?
No.
No.
The easy answer is no. There's Bowen Island Maps systems that sometimes help. There's Google Maps. There's sometimes GPS locations from cell phones that they can use instead. But I believe it's the Legion that does the blue rotary, thank you. The rotary that does it, like my house, for instance, didn't have one when I got here. It does now. So I would absolutely push for that. There's also some roads that become lanes and it's not well marked, that obviously in an emergency, we're looking off a laptop while driving and figuring it out. That the more identification, the better.
And in the dark, in the pouring rain, and I can go ahead.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, the map from the municipality, that's probably the best one.
Absolutely.
Absolutely the best one. Google Maps, Apple Maps are generally wrong more often than not. And the reflective signs are great. I always encourage people to please put them up at least 3 feet, if not 4, because all the emergency vehicles are higher.
Yeah.
And if the minute you put them down this far off the ground, they're immediately covered by Solal or Blackberry. And that can really be a challenge. So, yeah, and the other thing is that the bylaw officer has contacted me. I don't know if she's contacted you or not, but when we have one of those situations where we can't find a place, or it takes us a long time of driving back and forth and doing it by, elimination, this must be it. We report that address to them, and then they contact the homeowner to say, look, you're gonna have to do something, because I believe there is a bylaw.
There's a house numbering bylaw.
There is a house number bylaw, so then
supposed to be clear.
then they can contact them, and get them to realize that.
Click is probably one of the headache areas that it will skip 400 numbers. So when I'm driving there, I'm not even thinking of looking for the address yet.
Because they've gone from north, south to east, west all of a sudden.
It's the welding shop.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So there's three.
Hang on.
Sorry.
Before we get into the names and stuff, I'm going to point out, I think, Steve, did you have a question?
Yeah, just as a sort of on this topic, when we go out and we conduct the Fire Smart assessments for folks, this is one of the key items that's on the checklist. So we pointed out, and we use the opportunity to kind of either commend people for having a clearly marked address, like a street address, for example, one of the rotary signs, or we recommend that they do if they don't.
Okay, thank you. It sounds like we're all in agreement here, and
It's
very
definitely improving.
Yeah, get better. Good. Okay, Councillor Morse.
I just had a thought after thinking with Steve, for anybody that's got a building permit, I would hope that maybe when the building inspector goes out, he would say, you need
Well, that
an
was-
address.
I was, when we converted from phone numbers to house numbers, I was on that committee, and
Yeah.
they were saying, well, when do we assign a house number, when there's an occupancy permit? I'm going, no, when there's a building permit, that's when they need it. So, but at that point, all it really was required was plywood and Sharpie kind of thing. So, but yeah.
Well, the house numbering budget is quite specific as to, it has to be, light on, dark, and the size of the numbers and everything else. So it's.
That's good to know.
Do you know, does anybody know if it's part of the building permit?
I believe it is, but,
Okay.
oh,
Yes. Okay, we've got it. Good. Thank you, Fire Chief knows. Okay, very good. Thanks. Anything else we want to discuss about communications before we leave 7.1? Other business, go ahead, Jeff.
Is there any direct communications between? They're all on one side of the table. You guys, is there in a thing, would you be following each other at all?
No.
We don't, I mean, in town they do, and it's something that I've sort of wanted to, it's one of those, it's a challenge that they do have channels that you can go to, but it can be difficult. I think more particularly with the RCD, because often they're working by themselves, so they can't have 2 different radios on 2 different channels. I mean, fire and the ambulance in town will communicate, well, one's on scene and one's en route, but it can be difficult to get all the services on those same radios, and it's a whole different radio system, I believe, too, so.
They're all different,
Yeah.
yeah. I believe we have some cross channels we
I was
can
gonna
use.
say, yeah, we're nosy,
However-
so if we hear their sirens go, we'll switch over to see
Yeah.
what they have if we're at the office, so that if it's something we should start getting going to, but
Very good. Well, if there's anything that this committee could do, like have a special meeting or anything like that, that would help you, responders, with the communication side of things or anything, please let Tess know or any one of us know. Can convene something or help. That's what this committee is supposed to do, is help everything work better on the island. Okay, good. And I'm getting a look over there. Like, what are you offering? Okay. Just checking that you didn't have anything you wanted to say. Okay, let's move on then to other business. Anybody got anything? I have a question. Other business. I think FIFA is coming up. And I don't know, with the United States being different than it was 6 months ago. But at that point, as part of Islands Trust, we're in a sort of cooperative agreement with our neighbors across the other side of the international border. And they were at Friday Harbor, those kinds of places. And they were thinking, oh, they're going to have an influx of yachts, of people coming up, because it's a bigger event than the Olympics even for some folks. So I'm just wondering, are we any preparing that we need to do, or anybody thinking about hearing anything? No? Go ahead, Tess.
I can just say that emergency management and climate readiness, they of course are preparing for it, including they have reached out to all the communities. I don't know how far around the Lower Mainland, but we were included all the way up to Pemberton in kind of a review of who has resources for if there is an emergency in an area that obviously doesn't have any hotels available and those kind of things, so that they can disperse that out.
Oh, great.
So lots of planning is.
Oh, great. So there's planning in the works and we've been networked with. Great. Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
just with FIFA, the RCP has a leave restriction during that time, so that generally our membership is at full flow so that we can go to it. And then we have full access this spring and summer to our CMP RIB boat. So it's a weather sensitive boat because it's wide open. But the plan is to be out there as much as we can. And Brian is currently a boat operator, and John and I are both scheduled in the spring to go on the course. So all three of us will be able to go out at any point once FIFA starts.
Great. There's the boat. Great.
RIB, yeah, RHIB. What that means, I have no idea.
Rigid hold
Inflatable.
Oh, that sounds right.
How'd we do, Jen? Okay. Anybody else got anything else under other business or
I do.
questions? Go ahead.
I would like to invite the Integrated Partnership for Regional Emergency Management to give a presentation here. I don't know if you've received one in the past, but it might be useful for them to outline what they do and what the framework is about. Yeah, it's the Integrated Partnership for Regional Emergency Management. It's a partnership between the province and Metro Vancouver. And they are working on some interesting projects, and one of the ones that is of quite interesting to me is and the community is they're working on a project for the temporary provision of drinking water. So if there was ever an issue with drinking water shortage, how do they provide temporary drinking water to the various member municipalities within Metro Vancouver? And I just during that presentation, I raised that we're in a particularly vulnerable spot, being an island with limited resources. So I wouldn't mind getting a presentation on that from them. So I might reach out to them and try and get them in a similar manner that we got this presentation from Clive to the business continuity.
I think that would be really useful. That would be of interest to everybody here. Not seeing anybody
I think you just
I think it's a good idea.
broader as to just what the committee does, period, and
Yeah,
then maybe into some specifics.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, let's put that on the action list. And I'm not seeing any. Anybody else hands on up screen on Zoom? Anybody want to add anything just before we end the meeting? Look at the action items list. Okay, thank you, everybody. We're going to move on now from 7.2 to 8.1. That's the action items review.
I think you guys know what you're doing. That's for, okay, Steve, you're gonna review draft 2 of the OCP update and provide recommendations to the OCP steering committee regarding fire smart principles. Tests, a couple of columns and the recommendations for the after exercise report of priorities and
If no, why?
if no, why, yeah, or if yes, why to happen so quickly and effectively. So do that. I will be keeping a little update, regular update, standing item about that on our agendas, and Kern will be reaching out to the Integrated Regional Partnership to organize a presentation.
Sounds good. Okay, if that sounds good, everybody, I'm not seeing any more hands up on Zoom or in the room, so
I just remembered one thing.
go ahead, Councilor Morse.
And next gen 911, is that we're going ahead with, I got a newsletter the other day from them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're working on a couple of grants through NG 911 and yeah, it's just a slow moving process, but it is moving forward.
So that
We are part of it, that was what.
Yes, absolutely.
it's on page 55 of 60, the top one. Under financial grants. Administration of this grant is transferred to fire. Yeah. GIS consultant. Okay. Well done. Seeing this, I declare the meeting over.
Thank
I'll
you.
just say it's
And the sun's coming
adjourned.
out.
Yeah, the sun is out. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
so
so
much.
much.
Thanks for sharing, Sue Ellen.
Okay, no problem. Bye.
Just saw Jen in Mexico, so I can
Oh,
picture
you did?
exactly where she is. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where I went. Yeah, well, it's pretty right, yes.
Very good.
Whereabouts?
Cerritos, so like at the Bahamas. Have you been down there?
I went the week before March break. I was in Puerto Vallarta.
Yeah,
It's been so good.
One, the flight was already booked, and the local that I knew there was like, yeah, no, they sent me a photo at the same time that the media had a car on fire on the road. And it's old footage that they keep using for stuff. Like, she literally sent me a photo of the street.
And so much.
Or like.
Well, that's kind of creepy.
or
You're
the-
like, oh yeah, this is what's really happening
Right.
right now. Live.
She's like, her Costco was on fire and it was one car. And like even people's cars that were set on fire, like the cartel has connections and a lot of the tourist attractions that they're not messing with tourists, like.
Oh, it
There
would
was
affect their
one-
bottom line
Exactly.
anyways.
There was one vehicle, they asked everybody nicely to leave. And once they stepped away, set the car on fire. Like it's,
Oh, that's hilarious.
it was not the way.
Protect yourself.
Yeah,
Well, that causes explosion.
yeah, exactly.
It's Jen's up at the top of the bomb there, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
So she said, I remember her telling me, when they fly, they actually fly in Palm Springs.
It's only 5 hours from Palm Springs.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a plan of, have a request for going and sort of accommodation for a thing, and so he's sort of advice going on.
You're lying.
Talking on.
I'm still trying to get you beforehand.
That specific one, yes.
I can wing it on the fly as well.
That's what people, that's what I like, because you were able to speak personally, my family was involved, and I had all those things going through my mind, and professionally, it's,
Right?
that means the only authority with what it's 200 miles, but it's still there, so things like that. Yeah, it's very good.
Well, thank you.
So we're gonna this forward.
And I was so want people.
So much.
It was just.
Yeah, the second scenario is it changes, it's just kind of that, especially when it comes to volunteers, they want to help absolutely everybody, that it's, what I don't want to see is them thinking I have to go help my neighbors, and then the evacuation comes, and then they go, well, I need to go past. It's like, no, it's, you need to leave.
Oh, that's, we actually, we put that in because that's the prime directive. Yes, don't become a liability yourself.
Right, yeah.
So I'm sure somebody's gonna jump and do all sorts of stuff. You guys.
I don't need this big heavy raincoat now. I first talked about.
The sun was supposed to come in today. My son. His wife was supposed to leave Calgary at 12. He got 9 p.m.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's not good. All these good things.
I think it's the room control I'm gonna get.
And then they did this.
Can we just, I just want to flag, we might still be online, so whatever your conversations are.